How long will it take you to fully overcome your long-term insomnia and sleep problems? In today's video, I'm going to share with you a number of things I discuss with my clients as well, so that they can really truly set themselves up for succeeding in overcoming their long-term insomnia and sleep problems. Naturally, we're also going to talk about what long-term insomnia and sleep problems is, so that we can make sure that the foundation of what I'm going to share with you is there as well. But just as a word of warning, I'm not going to share anything that's quick fix type mentality. So what do I mean by that? Naturally, when I struggled with my insomnia, and often the clients that come to me, the first things we often go to are things that promise quick results. They promise overnight successes. They promise all your problems to go away within a very, very short period of time. But the reality of long-term sleep problems and insomnia is that it requires time and effort. It requires figuring out all the things that are applicable to your situation. And what I found in my practice is the quicker a client wants results, often the more frustrated or disappointed they become when they don't, quote unquote, fix it overnight. Again, I'm going to talk about this in a minute, but please approach the process of overcoming insomnia and sleep problems with enough time and effort. If you don't put anything in place, if you don't practice anything, it's very unlikely that your situation is magically or overnight going to change without effort. Just because you might purchase a physical thing, it doesn't mean that it's applicable to your problems that are driving or causing the issues you're having. So before we go into today's video, I wanted to welcome you back if you're part of my community already. And if you're brand new, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Beatrix Schmidt. I'm a sleep coach, a professional speaker, and the creator of the Sleep Skills for Life program, which is very much my way of helping clients like you to put everything in place and make sure that they succeed with overcoming their sleep challenges or insomnia problems that have been around for a long period of time. And I know how these things feel because I struggled with insomnia too. That's why my work is very much around doing what it takes so that you never have to struggle again, which is what I managed to achieve. I have fully overcome my insomnia many years ago now, and I never really had any more struggles with my sleep again. So let's turn our attention back to walking you through the number of different things that I discuss with my clients as well, so that the foundations of you succeeding to overcome your insomnia or sleep problems is really solid, and it's really there for you to work through. So one of the first things which I kind of started talking about already is this quick fix mentality. If your insomnia and sleep problems have been around for longer than 3 months, this is where we start to look at this definition of long-term insomnia. So let me walk you through what that definition is, just so that we can really clarify whether or not it is something that you're already sort of struggling with, or maybe it's actually not something that is as regularly a problem. So long-term insomnia is defined as your inability to fall asleep easily. Now, I also add a little bit to that, which is within half an hour. So if we just say inability to fall asleep easily, everybody has a different definition around it. But if a client struggles to fall asleep easily and it takes them longer than half an hour, we're really able to figure out how close or how far we are from what they want. The second part of this definition of insomnia is inability to be able to sleep through the night. Now, one of the things is important to bear in mind is I wake up sometimes too, but it doesn't mean that it's a disturbance. So sleeping through the night does not have to be approached through perfection. You can have great quality sleep and not fit into the definition of insomnia, even if you wake up maybe once a night for whatever reason that might be. But what's really important to bear in mind is how much of a problem it becomes. So inability to be able to sleep through the night properly means that often when you wake up several times, you're also not able to fall back to sleep easily again. So this is where we start adding together those practical definitions so you can figure out where you're at. Then the third part of these dynamics is, even though you have slept at night, you wake up not fully recharged. So this is where the quality and the quantity of the sleep is really part of this definition of whether or not you have insomnia uh, and long-term insomnia. But one of the other things that's really important to bear in mind with long-term insomnia is any or all of these problems, and there can be combination problems as well, or you might only struggle with one part of your sleep, needs to be there for at least 3 out of 7 days and for a minimum of 3 months. If you just have a few one-off nights, it doesn't mean that you are actually in this sort of definition of long-term insomnia. You might have had one-offs for a longer period of time, but it's often also about the frequency of the problem you're having. So I hope that this clarified of how you even can define whether or not you're fit into this long-term sleep problem and insomnia quote-unquote category. Now that we know what that is, the first step really is about looking at how much of a problem you have. So if you only struggle 1 out of 7 days, and maybe you're only struggling to fall asleep within sort of 40 minutes, that's very different as a complexity as someone who, let's say, takes a number of hours to fall asleep. Let's say they have more than 3 or 4 nighttime wakings. Let's say they take longer than 20-30 minutes to fall asleep as any one of those nighttime wakings. So complexity of a problem when it comes to insomnia is a really important thing to bear in mind when you actually figure out how long it might take you to overcome the problem. Most of my clients that I work with have struggled with long-term insomnia and often quite complex issues, both not able to fall asleep and not able to sleep through the night as well, for definitely longer than 3 months. Often my clients have struggled for years. So what's important to look at in terms of how long it's going to take you to be able to overcome your sleep problems is how long you have naturally struggled with it. It doesn't mean that just because you struggled for 5 years, let's say, it's going to take you 5 years to overcome it. What I normally say, and again, this is depending on the client, it can take anything from 3 months to 6 months to put everything in place with the help of a practitioner to fully overcome the insomnia problems. But a word of warning here. If there are any medical conditions also influencing the issues, then we're looking at a very different situation. So again, the 3 to 6 months is normally more of a practical way I explain it to my clients, and I will always tell them what I think in their situations. Some clients overcome their insomnia within 3 months completely. For some clients, depending on the complexity of the problem, it might take a bit longer as well. So now it's over to you. Really start looking at realistically how complex is your problem, which means that you're going to be looking at a minimum of about 3 months of practical approaches to really be able to succeed. I'm not saying it's going to take you 3 months or more, but that really sets you up for a really good approach when it comes to putting the work in. The second thing I normally say to clients is that you've got to establish what are some of the things that are already helping you. But not because you're guessing it, but because you know that it is completely reliably helping you. I'm not saying that it's sorted out all the different issues you have, but you know that there is a positive influence when you are either putting in place the tool or technique or exercise. But I'm not talking about sleep medication here. I'm talking about more of those practicalities. So establishing what's already helping you, but even if you have lower amount of hours, it's still helping you. A lot of the clients that come to me, disregard everything that currently exists in their life. But the reality is that whilst it might not match your expectations of what you want to sleep, you are going to sleeping some hours, some nights, or most of the night. So again, depends on your situation, which means that even if you have a number of hours, whether that's 4 hours or 5 hours of sleep or more, something is helping that to happen. Some of those things are already going to be there that you can actually influence so that it can help you in a bigger way, in a more practical way. So start with those foundations of figuring out what is completely proven itself rather than sometimes working, because those are the things that you can build upon. The next thing is very much looking at, are you doing too much or are you doing too little? So some of the clients that I've worked with in the past have just sort of pottered around with sort of using one or two different things. And that's not no disrespect to them. Is that it's situation that they had. But other clients had an incredibly long list of things that they were doing that became almost chore-like, and they were doing one at a time and go through, let's say, an hour or an hour and a half of something before they even climbed into bed. So how I work with clients is that we need to create a natural situation. Doing nothing at all to help you to change and be in a different place is not helpful. Doing too much and taking up so much of your time already to secure your sleep is also not good. So we're going to find something in the middle. So if you're not doing many things, then my approach would be to really look at the things you're doing, are they helping? And then add a number of different things to it. If you're doing too many things, then what I would also look at is figuring out what's really helping and leave behind the things that haven't proven themselves. So you can clean out some of those very chore-like behaviors that might actually be driving some of the issues that you have. Then the next thing is really looking at how much time and effort you're able to put into changes. Just because you think about getting better or think about overcoming insomnia and sleep problems or read all sorts of articles, but you're not actually backing that up with practical changes, there's a mismatch naturally. Overeducating yourself without taking appropriate practical action is not going to help you to shorten the time frame of overcoming your problems completely. So this is where, again, being very honest with yourself and saying, well, okay, am I just reading about it, or am I actually really putting in place the things that are appropriate for me? And this leads us to the next thing that already started mentioning earlier on. Not every single tool is going to be appropriate to your situation. Not every single exercise is going to be appropriate to your situation. And I'm just going to mention two different things here. If a client is more of a thinker type and they have busy mind or racing mind, doing a breathing exercise might help to calm down, but it does not mean that it will decrease the intensity of your thoughts in your mind. For example, deep breathing, often the reason it helps is because you're focusing on it, which means you're distracting yourself from, let's say, the busyness of your mind. So it's really important to really look at these things in a practical way and whether or not they are truly applicable to the issues that you are experiencing. And again, another example. If leading up to bedtime you're getting incredibly nervous or perhaps even anxious about your sleep, having a bath isn't again applicable to the emotional things that are unfolding. The heightened emotions are not going to decrease just because you had a nice warm bath. Often what happens is you feel good, but then the emotions rise up again. And again, this is just a couple of different examples that I've seen with my client work. What's appropriate is based on the actual bottom line of the problem, the root cause of the problem. And I normally break it down into physical components, emotional components, and mental components. Like I said, if your mind is busy and you're just doing a breathing exercise, the breathing exercise is a physical thing. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's completely going to deal with the behavior of racing mind and busy mind, which is part of who you are. So I hope that these different things has really helped you to approach how you even estimate the time it's going to take you to really fully overcome your long-term insomnia and sleep problems. But this last piece I wanted to add is because no matter what time frame you picked, and I remember picking a time frame for myself at the time when I struggled too, being completely curious, kind, compassionate, and patient with the process is very important. You might have picked a time frame, but maybe you didn't quite get there. Getting really frustrated towards the end of that process isn't really going to help you to continue moving forward in a good way. So, this curiosity, the patience, the kindness, the compassion are all the things that's going to help you to continue working on things, continue tweaking things, even if you might not have completely gotten to the end result you want or you wanted, but you have seen changes. But don't be just curious and patient and not see any results. So there's again a bit of a mismatch. If you're doing the things that are not creating results, being patient is not the appropriate way forward. Addressing whether or not you are putting the right things in place is the way forward. So now that we covered all those different things, I wanted you to really take the time to look at your situation. Like I said, most of the clients that I work with, and that's with the help of a practitioner like me, we normally look at a 3 month time frame. But again, it depends on the client. So when you pick your time frame, also bear in mind that you're going to be working on your sleep potentially by yourself. Self-awareness can mean that when you are proactive about these things, it can actually shorten the time frame it takes you to fall asleep easily, sleep through the night, and wake up refreshed in the morning, really sorting out all those different layers of your sleep problems. But if you don't succeed, one of the things I always say to people is seek support. A practitioner can really point out things that you might not actually realize about yourself, and therefore shortening the time frame it might take you to really make a true difference in this process of improving your sleep and overcoming your sleep problems. So thank you so much for watching today's video. If you haven't yet, then hit that subscribe button below, hit that little bell as well so I can let you know when I post new videos. And it's over to you. Really start working on these different things that I mentioned in today's video, and let me know how you get on, how you get on with them in the comments. I always love to hear your process and your progress. And if you've got any questions, then you can reach out to me separately.